Hey Heather,
Hey Denise, how are you?
I'm doing great. Um, my name is Denise Appleby. I'm an IRA thought leader, national expert, etc. You can find me on LinkedIn at Denise Appleby. Denise Appleby on LinkedIn. And you are?
Heather Schreiber. You can find me on LinkedIn at Heather Schreiber.
Yeah. And you're one of the leading Social Security experts in the country,
I,
right?
d- I have a passion for it, that's for sure. And I do speak nationally on that topic, among other topics. But yes, that is definitely one. Just got home yesterday from speaking on that very topic. Yep.
So when people have questions about IRAs, I know I can answer all their questions. When they have Social Security, I know you can answer all those questions. I don't have to tell people, oh, I'll get back to you. I have the answer right off the, yeah. Um, but you said you just came back from a presentation, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today, because the question came up of slides. How many slides are too much for your presentation? And I know, Heather, that I've seen presentations for an hour where the individual has 120 slides, and I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
Where if my presentation is for an hour, typically my slides are no less than 80 slides. And people have said to me, Denise, that's too much. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny because you and I, this is how this conversation came up. You and I differ on that. And the reasons we differ, we'll talk about. But, my slides yesterday, for example, I think the content was about 24. And I took the entire hour to get through it. Of
You
course, I
mean
like to
24
talk.
slides?
I'm sorry.
When you said 24, do you mean 24 slides?
Yeah, 24 slides. And I'm challenged to get through that. Now I add a lot of depth to you get me talking. And if anybody's heard me talk, I can talk forever. But I'm always like, you know what? I've got an hour. I add a lot to it. And so I'm usually on the let's have the fewer the better.
Mm.
But the interesting thing is that's what got us talking. And your reasons for having more made sense to me once we started talking. We're like, let's share this because maybe I'm the one that's doing it wrong, you know?
So, so, what are those reasons? My explanation to Heather is sometimes when I see a slide and it's densely populated with information, I'm thinking I could make 4 or 5 slides out of that. So I find that where someone might put certain information on a slide, if I have content on a slide and it's more than X amount of lines and X amount of words, I'm breaking it up. So it's not that I have more content. You and I might have the same volume of content, but I have more slides because my thing is when I'm doing a presentation, if you're in the back of the room, I want the font to be at least 28, depending on which font you're using. But size is usually at least 28. The title slide usually at least 44. And so you can't fit a lot on one slide. If you're going to say, explain what an IRA is. If it's going to take up more than one slide because I'm using a font 28, I'm going to do it. So you and I might have the same volume of content. I have more slides, you will have less. So we cover the same content in the same
I'm
allotted
embarrassed.
time.
I'm embarrassed to tell you what my font is now that
What
you
is
just
your
said that
font?
yours is 28,
What
18,
is
18. And yesterday was a perfect example because I hadn't seen the room layout, obviously. It was packed and it was a long room. So it got me thinking too. Another thing we could talk about all kinds of things, but really knowing ahead of time, too, what the layout of the room is. Because in
yeah,
this case, it was a particularly long room. It wasn't wide. So I had people that were far away in the back. There were two screens, so obviously not one big one, which made it even more challenging for them to see.
yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I should have gone with the 44 font, right?
You should have
Um,
gone with 44
right.
fonts.
Right. I mean, I think that they were mostly listening to me, but as well as I, some of the things
Yeah,
that we talk about, it does help to track with the
yeah,
slide. Now, I don't like to, I'd rather them track with me because sometimes you get kind of um, disengaged if you're trying to read a slide, which I know you're going to say, well, that's why I only put like two words at 48 font on the slide because they have
A
to
little
listen to
more
me
than
then.
2 words, but the person in the back, yeah, I tell my audience, don't read my stuff, just listen to me. But some people are conditioned to
Right.
want to read the
Well, yeah,
slide and write notes. Now, that makes me think of something else that we've been talking about, but let's stick with the room first. Because I agree, if you're invited to speak somewhere, it's good to know the setup. Like you had a rectangular room, a very narrow rectangular room. It would have been good to know that because then you know that people are further away.
right.
So if someone invites me to speak, one of the question that I want the answer to before I go is about how many people are we talking about? And then when I get there, Heather, I like to get there the night before to my speaking engagement because flights can get delayed and all that stuff. But when I get there on that day, I go down to where I'm speaking and I look around to see what the setup is. No, that's still not going to help you if the room is too long and you already sent them your deck.
Right.
Right.
Well, which check and check, right? I knew I did all of the things. I was there the night before. I went to the speaker ready room. I saw
Yeah.
it all and they were all kind of set up that way. And the deck was already there. So I couldn't change it, but it was interesting. You learn. I mean, we've been doing this for both of us, 30 something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you learn, I learned something
Yeah.
last week too
Yeah.
about a webinar I was doing. So you're always learning about ways to do it better, to
Yeah.
do it better for your audience. Because at the end of the day,
And
educators,
we
right?
care, right? We care.
Yeah,
We're not just about I'm here to speak. No,
yeah,
I'm here to educate. And
right.
so the question
Right,
becomes, is my setup helpful enough so the audience is going to feel like they got what they came to get out of it?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another point. I like to share my slides and I get, some of my colleagues, they cuss me out for that. You're giving away too much information. Don't give them your slides. But I always tell my audience, I'm a sharer. What do you want? I can give it to you, right?
I
And
mean, you
so
might
I
get one
start,
word on a slide from me that's, 50 font, but
no, but my approach is no more than 7 lines and no more than
yeah,
7 words per line.
yeah,
So you get enough information. If I'm going to be talking about uh, IRA contribution deadlines, you're going to get enough information on one slide. So you can have a conversation with your client about contribution deadlines. But I'm not going to overwhelm you so that you're sitting there trying to write, even though I told you not to write. And by the time I'm done talking with the slides, you haven't
right.
written down or digested what's on the slide. So I want you to follow me as I'm talking, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So I don't put a lot of information on one slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've
That brings
differed.
us to your next
Yeah.
point. Do you share
Yeah.
your content? Because you're the same like me. If I'm doing a presentation, like next in October, I'm going to be speaking at NAFA, their fall conference, and I have done a presentation on the final R&D regulations for multiple clients. And so you would think, one of my clients said to me, Denise, all you got to do is copy paste it to a new presentation. No, I want to know who my audience is. I want to customize my presentation for that audience. And every time I update a presentation, I find something
Right.
that changes it. The change is significant enough so that it seems like a whole different presentation. So, but I still don't have any problem sharing my slides. I share my slides. I also share additional handouts like my quick reference guides, etc. But, I understand someone who doesn't want to do that because you put a lot of work into it. It's your proprietary information. And so some people feel like I'm not sharing that with you. You get the presentation, you can watch it, or you can listen to me, but I'm not going to give you a whole prepared deck for yourself. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm more in that camp. I've always sort of, and my concern is too, I mean, I do prescribe to that. I do put a lot of work as you do. And so I've always been like, okay, I'm not sharing this deck for it to be, it's copywritten obviously, but I get concerned about the delivery of it too, because it is a technical topic. I mean, everything we talk about. And so I get concerned about misrepresentation of it. It's got my logo on it. I'm very, there's a lot that goes into the rules and regulations that we discuss, so I have always been, no, I'm not going to give you. Now I do, this conference made me think, I mean, everyone wanted it. Obviously they couldn't see. So in this case, I did acquiesce and I was like, you know what, gosh, they couldn't see it. So in this case, I did go after the fact and download the content to them as a PDF file. But it did give me pause to say, you know what, give them something, to take away the major points. But my concern is to, yes, it's a lot of work that goes into what we create. But I do definitely from this took away that I want them to come away with the things that are actionable to them. Because a lot of times my presentations, yes, Social Security is one of those that I do speak nationally on a lot. And I really come at it from the standpoint of what does the advisor really need to know? Not everything that we know. They don't need to be digging into the palms like I do or the regulations like, you do. But what do they really need to know to make this something they can implement into their practice? And so those are the things that I can give as takeaways, maybe an abridged version of that presentation to say, okay, these are the things I need to know. This is the takeaway that I need, because I think that's the valuable part. So, and not be so worried about the sharing part. Because I mean, at the end of the day, so some of these presentations are hard to do unless you do have the backgrounds and, study that we've had. So, you're always learning. I'm always learning. What can I do better for my audience? Because, the success of us is them, right? We want them to learn. That's our passion. So I learn something every single time I go. This one, I learned that it's a very long room and the people in the very back couldn't see, and they also didn't have a table, so they couldn't take notes. So I saw a lot of people taking pictures of the slides. So, you learn.
And so when I see people doing that in my presentations, I'll say, why are you wasting time taking pictures? You have a copy of the slide, or you're going to get a copy of the slide. So two different camps on that. We talked about slides, how many is too many. You like to include a lot of information. I like to keep it light.
And I will change that. I will. It's a good point. I mean, I'll give you one. Because I think it is, probably good in the event, because there's sometimes you don't know what the setup's going to be. I'm going to make a point of asking that now beforehand to be mindful of it. But I think, less is more in a lot of ways, because I don't want the content to be too heavy. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The fact that you have 80 slides instead of 40 doesn't mean you're adding more information. You just make it more visible to the audience.
Right. That's
so we talked about that. We talked about, do you share slides with the audience? And we want to ask you who are listening to give us your feedback as well. What are your thoughts on how many slides is enough? Heather, I went to a presentation once. You're an attorney, put up one slide, and he talked for 2 hours. Right? He was just talking, but I could hear the members of the audience saying, where are the rest of the slides? Where are the rest of the slides? Yeah. I don't care where you come out on the PowerPoint issue, whether you should use PowerPoint or not. Right. Your audience wants something to look at. They want something to take back with them so that they can review later on. And definitely one slide for 2 hours is not enough. So audience members, where do you come out on the how many slides is enough? And do you share slides with your audience? Do you share additional content? And how do you make sure that the room is right for your audience? Because it's not about us. It's about the audience and whether they can hear us, whether they can see us. So let us know in the comment section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Heather?
Yeah. And if you're an advisor that is on the receiving end of anyone that's, doing presentations like ours, let us know what works for you. Because, I had a similar video last week of my epic fail of, speaking for an entire hour on a webinar where I didn't have any slides showing. No one told me. And I just kept talking and talking. Some people said, hey, we love that. We love that. It was very authentic. And I thought, oh my goodness, they could have used the slides, but it's all, I'm always laughing at myself. I have all kinds of content to work with on that, but I'm always learning a better way, it's just what's the best way to connect with your audience. So love that we don't always agree.
Yeah.
And that you teach me things. I'm like, okay, note to
Well,
self.
we're here to learn from each other, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I need to
so,
learn Social Security. That's on my bucket list. That's what I need
oh,
to
oh, don't tease me like that. Don't tease me.
do.
So, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So this is great. Usually we talk about tax laws, and it's nice to have a good change.
Yeah.
Part of what Heather and I want to do is to not just teach about Social Security and retirement accounts, but to help people who are doing the same thing that
Mhm.
we're doing. And I find that one of the best ways to learn is from a mistake. And if someone else made
Right.
that mistake, then we want to make sure that you don't make the same mistake as we're sharing with you. So
Yeah.
thank you, and we look forward to your comments.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Denise. Until
All
next time.
right. See you at the next event.
All right. Yeah, we'll see each other soon.
Yeah.
All right.